Ladies and gentlemen, farmers, ranchers, and distinguished guests, thank you for listening to the Farm4Profit podcast, where we discuss the latest ideas, methods, trends, and techniques available to help your farm achieve higher levels of farm profitability. The Farm4Profit podcast is co-hosted by Tanner Winterhoff, the Iowa Bankerman, and David Whitaker, the Iowa Land Guy, where in tandem they will share their ideas and advice from industry experts. Thank you again for listening to the Farm4Profit podcast. Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long. And now, here's Tanner and David.
And listeners, welcome back to the Farm4Profit podcast. This is Tanner Winterhoff.
This is Corey Hillebo.
And this is David Whitaker.
This is a Farm4Profit episode. When we differentiate the Mondays to Thursdays, this is where we talk about a specific topic. Farm for Fun will be the next episode in your queue. That's where we talk to a specific person and get more of their story.
And remember, on our podcast, share your ideas. You can do that at farm4profitllc@gmail.com. We're doing 2 a week now, so make sure that you're sending us your thoughts and what you want to hear, because we want to accommodate you, and we love our listeners so much that we love it when you review us as well. So on all social media profiles, or you can call us as well. But each week we like to focus on one of those reviews that we have. And this week's listener review is brought to you by Gearinghoff. They're the head of the class listener, no matter the crop.
You're right. Premium harvesting heads for all your harvesting needs. And we may need some of that. There was Draco went through a couple weeks back, tangled up some corn, South Dakota, Northwest Iowa. Could need one of those good Gearinghoff heads to get that picked up off the ground.
Might pick it up. Corey, what's the review today?
It is a text message that comes from the 812-257 area, and it says, "You guys rock. You're the best podcast in Huxley."
How many podcasts are in Huxley?
I don't know, but thank you.
There might only be 2, but by golly, we are the best.
But 812, how do they even know where Huxley is?
I don't know.
Well, must watch our YouTube channel.
Yeah, we should look that up.
But you can also call and text us, like Dave said, 515-207-9640. That'd be great if you did.
Yeah, we love them. It's fun to see them come in, but we don't want to take any more of your time talking about us. Let's jump into our topic for the day.
We have a cool topic today, don't we, guys?
Very cool.
Okay, listeners, what's working in ag? This is a segment that Dave created way back. What would this have been? It was almost before the podcast even started.
3 years ago.
It's where he said, well, let's go to the coffee shop in the virtual world and talk about everything that gets talked about at the coffee shop. And this is for sure going to be one of those things. Today we have Dakota Hoban here. He is the CEO of Farmers Risk, and that's what we're going to learn about. So welcome to the podcast, Dakota.
Well, it's great to be here. I really appreciate the invite, Tanner and Dave. So I'm really excited for this.
Great. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are before we jump into what Farmers Risk is?
Sure. So I'm a farm kid from Iowa. Grew up in southeast Iowa, down there right on the Mississippi River. And so that's where my folks' farm is at. Corn, soybeans, cattle. Pretty typical Iowa farm. But like any good Iowa kid, if you're interested in ag and you want to study ag, you don't go anywhere but Iowa State, I suppose. So that's what I did. So even though I grew up deep in Hawkeye country, have an affinity for the Hawkeyes still too.
That's too bad.
That's I hear it. I hear it. But I do love my Cyclones, and so studied at Iowa State. Really got to have some really great experiences there, of course. But post college, spent some time working in ag private equity and for a large diversified farm. That really kind of furthered my passion for just kind of, I would say, the business space. But at some point, I really decided that I wanted to learn ag tech. I wanted to learn technology. I knew farming. I knew ag. Right, I came from that. I studied that. That's what I knew. But the technology side was something a little bit new to me. And so at the time, I went to work for a startup called Granular. Right, it was a farm management software company. Had a really talented team there, and that's where I really kind of cut my teeth. Right, helping the team, build, sell software to farmers, scale a company, ultimately successfully exit that company. But out of that really grew my desire for solving a different problem for farmers. And my co-founder and I really kind of picked up and set off to do a farmer's risk. And so I'm really excited to talk more about that today and kind of what we're doing there and to help farmers. So,
well, that's awesome. What was your major at ISU? It wasn't ag tech then?
That's not a major, I don't think, at Iowa State. But I mean, initially I went to Iowa State because I thought I wanted to do politics. I thought I wanted to do ag policy. And so I just said, I'm just going to study everything that I think would be valuable to ag policy. So that was ag business, political science, international ag, and economics.
Awesome. So you went...
wow, that sounds like a strenuous set of classes.
I was going to say, we know another person that had that route, I think. True. EBT.
Elizabeth, she was in my ag biz program.
Yep.
Good friend. Funny. Yeah, no. But no, here's the thing, Tanner. Whether you come out of there with 4 majors or 1 major, you're paying the same price. So I got my money's worth.
Very
That's
good.
And you said, and according to the notes here, you were student body president.
I did stumble into that, yes, during my senior year.
That's
Yeah.
what he wanted to start the resume for his political career.
Well,
was student body president.
yeah, even at that point, I was probably beyond, because I did some internships in politics in college, and that told me I didn't want to work in politics pretty quickly. But, was still passionate about politics and, helping students on campus, and got to do some really super interesting things there as a student body president. Fun fact, actually, my co-founder, Eric, he was a student body president at Purdue as well.
Wow. Iowa State and Purdue together
There you go.
under the same company, Farmers Risk.
So Tanner, this is what's working in ag. So we know who we're talking to. We got Dakota here, but what is working here? Is it ag tech? Is it farm management? Is it risk management? Let's go deeper.
I'd love to take that one a step deeper, because I think we're really where we got into farmers risk at Granular. I think that Eric, myself, and others, Eric's my co-founder, we heard from a bunch of farmers about the problems that we were solving with, helping them understand their cost of production, important problems, things like that. But I think we would constantly hear farmers saying, hey, you're helping me with my the cost of the business, my workflows, all these different things. But when are you going to help me kind of market my grain to manage my risk, right? And that wasn't a problem that we were solving at Granular. And so you hear that enough, and finally you just start looking around and popping your head up and saying, hey, what solutions are out there for farmers? And honestly, it wasn't anything very good. And so Eric and I decided, hey, we're going to set out to build a software company that specifically helps farmers manage their price risk, right? And so when we talk about risk management at Farmers Risk, we largely talk about what we call a three-legged stool. All right, this comes down to the crop insurance choices that the farmers make, the cash sales decisions, and then ultimately their hedging strategy, right? And so we think the best farmers are using all three of those tools, and we wanted to find a better way to bring those tools together in a software in a dynamic way so that farmers always know exactly where they're at.
All right, hit those three again.
Yeah, so crop insurance really forms the baseline for most farmers' kind of risk management planning. At least it really should. And then beyond that, right, cash sales. Every farmer's got to turn their crop into cash at some point. And so whether you forward sell, you do some HTAs, some basis contracts, right, that's all a form of risk management. You can spread out that timing and that risk. And then the last leg is the hedging strategy, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more, but using futures and options, right, to supplement what you're doing in those other two spaces.
So would we call you a financial strategist for farmers?
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, what we say about ourselves is we want to be the farmer's best source of revenue at any given point in time, so they know exactly where they're going to end the year. So we are not an advisory service like a lot of folks. We are simply building the software tools to give the information to farmers in order to act and make better decisions related to their risk management. Right?
Okay, so you're building the tool, but how does that tool work?
Yeah. The tool works by aggregating all of those data points into one place.
Okay.
So I always say that what I most commonly hear amongst farmers is farmers will sit down with their crop insurance agent and they'll make a crop insurance decision. They'll call up their grain merchandiser at Landis or whatever, and they'll make a cash sale decision. Or they'll call up their broker and they'll make a brokerage decision, but rarely are they considering how each one of those things plays together in their overall risk management strategy.
So let me back up for our listeners. We went really quick there. So we're talking with Dakota, and Farm Risk is the company that he has co-founded here, and it is a software, is what I'm gathering, that helps farmers make educated decision with data, because data is the currency of the future in farming, right, Tanner?
Absolutely.
As we always say.
That.
So they're taking data to help you make informed decisions. So they're not necessarily the person making the decision for you. You, the farmer, are still making the decision. They're just giving you the tools and the asset to make better decisions.
That's exactly right. We want to get farmers out of making decisions in vacuums and making these kind of what we call these portfolio mindset decisions, right? And so we think that we can build some really excellent software tools that farmers can use with their advisors, their consultants, or whoever to really help make those better decisions, right? Farmers are historically not great grain marketers, believe it or not. And so we want to use some data to help them.
Tanner, do you have tools that are out there currently on the market?
No, I don't have anything that clients would specifically use like this. It always seems just kind of like he described. They've got a couple of brokers that they call. They've got a couple of podcasts that they listen to. They've got a merchandiser at the ethanol plant that they call. Nothing that is all-encompassing, going to put a global picture together for their operation. So is this something that is on the verge of technology coming out and being released, or is it already in motion?
Yeah, no, this is already in motion. And so farmers can go to our website, farmersrisk.ag. They can sign up for a free account, and they can start to kind of track some of these things and just bring it all together in a really simple way. But we do have some really exciting new tools coming out that I'd love to talk to you guys about.
I love new. And I love being the exclusive ones that get to release the new
You bet.
items.
If it works for agriculture, we're all about profitability. So let us know what you got.
So, I mean, when I thought about breaking news, I thought, what's the most reputable breaking news organization I know? And that was Farm for Profit podcast.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
So you guys can hear it here first. But yeah, no, consolidating the risk picture was the first goal. And we've tackled that, and we have software. And like I said, any farmer can get on and try it for free, right? But we wanted to go a step further, and we wanted to give farmers the tools to actually take the action, right? How do I improve my grain marketing strategy? How do I take an action to hedge my crop in a certain way? And so what we actually have built are futures and options trading tools that are simplified and within our software for farmers. So now a farmer can also hedge their crop within the exact same software that they're using to track their entire risk portfolio. And they can do that in a really low cost and effective way.
So that's streamlined. That is almost a one-stop shop now using this platform.
Almost a one-stop shop. Yep. Nope. There's tons more things we think we can do, but not that many farmers use futures and options, right? The farmers we talk to, it's largely a cost problem and a complexity problem. And so we've tried to address both those things with our tools and making this far more simple. Because at the end of the day, right, the best risk managers that we're talking to, and we're talking with hundreds of different farmers, are the farmers that use all three legs of the stool, and they use all three legs of the stool together.
So I have so many questions now, Dakota. Is it web-based? Is it app-based? Is it subscription-based? And then how does it actually work? Like, what is your special sauce? You got to give me a little bit more.
Yeah, number of questions there. So is it web-based? Yes. Is it app-based? Can you use it on your phone? Yes is the answer to those. Is it subscription-based? And the answer is kind of. So if a farmer goes onto our website and signs up for an account, they can do that for free and they can track some of the information, right? We do sell subscriptions of our software to advisors and consultants who want to manage, right, 50, 100 customers and manage their data in one platform, right? And so we do sell subscriptions to advisors. But then a farmer, right, could sign up for a free account. And if they want to choose to transact on the platform, they would then enter into, right, opening a trading account with us. And then we would just take transaction fees. Right?
So you heard that, listeners. It's free if you want to go there, farmersrisk.com, .ag. And so now what's the special sauce? Why do I use your product?
Yeah, I mean, there's no real special sauce. It's just that, brokerage tools have been built for traders on Wall Street, not farmers on Main Street. And so we take a lot of the complexity out. And we've just tried to simplify and say, hey, here's what a farmer cares about, and here's how we can make it easy. And so we connect, to the Chicago Board of Trade, right? And we have a full list of options, puts, calls, short-dated, weekly options, right? All these different things that farmers are using to manage and hedge their risk. And we've just made it adaptable to a farm, right? I always say there's things like a brokerage statement doesn't care about that we do, right? Like crop years, right? A brokerage statement doesn't care about your crop years, but that's actually a pretty significant portion of understanding your risk as far as what actual revenue that you've hedged, right, and what crop year. And oftentimes farmers, at least the most progressive ones, are managing maybe at least 3 crop years at one time. And so all that gets really, really challenging. And so we have made super, super simple tools to aggregate all of that, bring it together, and take action, trade, if you feel comfortable. So
that's awesome. Can't wait to see it.
So, excited to share more about it and definitely get some people engaged in the tool. So,
of course, our listeners are very tech savvy or forward thinking.
Sure.
They want to know what the next technology is, but that's a small group of agriculture.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a large, diverse audience, or your archetype of customer.
Definitely.
It sounds like you're targeting the archetype of customer that is a do-it-yourselfer that is going to use your tools to do it themselves. What about the guys that say, I don't have time for that because I'm still fixing the combine head and I'm still blowing out the whatever. They have stuff to do. Do you have an option for them that they don't have to log on and take their own action?
No, that's a great point. Yeah, no. So, when the way we think about farms and advisors and consultants on those farms, one thing we always say is we say farmers farm as a team, right? And that's not going to change, right? And so we wanted to build the software in such a way where we could enable farmers, advisors and their consultants, bankers, crop insurance agents, brokers, grain marketing consultants, whoever they may be, right, to engage within the software as well. And so we work with brokers today as well. We work with all of those different groups, right, in helping their kind of farms manage that data for them, right? We have a few full service brokerages, right, that say, hey, there aren't any good tools bringing this data together for my farmers so I can help my farmer make better decisions, because I can't help my farmer make better decisions if we don't have all the data, right? That's a big struggle amongst advisors and consultants. And so a number of them are using our tools, right, kind of on the farmer's behalf.
I got you.
Right? And then they can send reports, push updates to them and say, hey, here's where you're at.
We always talk about an advisory team, Tanner.
Yeah.
Whether it's banker, attorneys, futures, options, et cetera, et cetera. I was curious, can they log in under your account? Like I'm thinking my accountant with QuickBooks.
Sure.
If I have a question, I just say, hey, Tammy, tell me what this looks like. She logs into our account, she looks at it, and she takes care of it because I don't feel I have the time. With Tanner as a banker, I say, Tanner, what should I do here? What direction do you think I'm going? I think when you get to running your operation like a business, that's the direction you're going, where you're looking to your advisors, and I want to make sure those advisors can use this tool.
Yeah, no. And so I think permissioning of data is really, really important, right? And so we put that power in the farmer's hands. We say permission and allow whoever you would like to into the software, right? And so, Tanner, right, as a banker, he could have 50 customers, right, he works with, right? He can log into his account, right? And he can easily pop between all 50 farmers that he works with, right? If they were to permission him into, their account to help advise them or, make better decisions, right? And so we certainly thought about that from the start. That was really, really important to us. It's one of our core values that we think about, and just how interacting with farmers, how they work currently, right? We're not trying to disrupt the apple cart necessarily, but just simply build better tools for farmers and allow them and their advisors to engage with them. And ultimately make more money, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about for farmers.
And that's what this podcast is about. And that's why I think this is such a great What's Working in Ag segment. The only problem we have with this What's Working in Ag segment is not enough time to get all the way into this, because now I'm geeking out and I want to know more.
Yeah.
But I think the best way for our listeners is now we've teased them. We've given them an idea of what's available, what the potential options are. But if they want to learn how this works and they want to learn exactly what is available for them to use, we need you to tell us how to go find it. So let's do that next here before we wrap up.
Yeah, no. The easiest way to get to us is on our website, farmersrisk.ag, right? Sign up for an account. We'll find you. Don't worry at that point in time. But we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, LinkedIn. So Twitter is probably where we are the most active. And so at Farmers Risk is our handle there. And I feel like I've done my job then. I've teased this enough, and I'm signed up for round 2 right now.
Absolutely.
There's a commitment.
This will be fun to see the new product come out.
Yep.
To be able to play around, get some feedback from our listeners, and then ultimately see how this applies to everyday profitability on the farm.
Yeah.
Well, Dakota, thanks again for jumping in on this What's Working in Ag segment. One more time, tell them what the website is, and then we'll jump into our topic for the day.
Yep, the company is Farmers Risk, and you can check us out at farmersrisk.ag, and we're going to have some super cool promotions coming this fall to get some guys going on our platform. So keep your eyes peeled for those.
Thank you much. We have the pleasure of being joined all the way from Canada today for our guest, Chace Barber, CEO of Edison Motors. Chace, according to the background that was provided, is a truck driver with over 14 years of experience, ran his own trucking company after attending university, spent a lot of time in a 1969 Kenworth. The trucking side of his company was shut down, so he and his brother had to move and focus on solar equipment manufacturing. But the reason we're talking with Chace today is his newest endeavor called Edison Motors. So welcome to the podcast, Chace.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm excited to kind of talk with you guys about it all.
So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about where you are joining us from? What part of Canada? Where are you at?
So I'm on the west coast of Canada here, out in British Columbia.
Okay.
Actually, Merritt, to be specific.
Yeah. And what we can see in the background of you is it looks like you're out in the middle of the forest.
That's kind of where our shop is, yeah. Our shop is up a logging road out in the middle of nowhere, which is kind of nice, actually. That's the way I like it. There's something nice about not having to be in a city. A little bit harder to find guys, but we got a good group of guys now from the town, and yeah, nobody bothers us. We kind of can do our own thing out here, and we're loggers, so we're used to working out in the bush.
Yep. I was telling the guys that I was giving you crap earlier because 2 hours ago you texted me and I said Central Standard Time, and you said, is that 1 hour or 2 hours from now? And I said, that's 2 hours from now. Silly Canadians. But I did not realize that you guys don't use that. You go by the provinces. Is that right?
Yeah, our provinces are big enough that basically just all the provinces have their own time zone. Like British Columbia, the time zone for, I think you guys call it Pacific time, is just like BC time. Then you have Alberta time or Prairie time. Then it's Ontario time zone. Then we have the Quebec is on their time zone. So they kind of just split it up by provinces. So when someone's like CST, and I'm like, oh crap, I know what, like the West Coast time, I know Pacific time, I know the East Coast is like 3 hours. And I'm like, is Central time, or is it the East Coast 4 hours like our East Coast? Because our East Coast is 4, and there's at 3, and
Well, it worked
So
out.
I just clarify, I'm like, how many hours do you want me?
Hey, you went above and beyond what most guests would. So
Absolutely.
they would just hop on when they thought it would be, and then be like, "Where are you?"
No,
Hope for the best.
that's awesome. So before we jump into the project that you're working on, what are you guys dealing with on the solar side? You got a little solar business running there, don't you?
Yeah. So we that kind of branched off of the trucking side of the business. So when we were trucking in Alberta, we did a lot of low bedding. We held some generators, and then we're like, hey, like we like solar. Why don't we start moving into some solar? Like we were always interested, even from university. So we're like, well, if we're doing trucking, like we can install the generators. If we're installing the generators, we can do solar, and we can start engineering hybrid solar systems. And now we're contractors for Caterpillar in Western Canada. We're Caterpillars and Finnings contractors to do solar setups in Western Canada here. So we do a bunch of solar light towers that are tiny mobile solar power plants, like generators or power plants. We bring those out to site. And then we started doing larger hybrid stuff with generators and batteries and solar. We did one, and that's where the idea really came from. Edison Motors is way up in northern Canada. Like we're up near the Yukon. There's this tiny little First Nations community. They had a 90 kilowatt hour generator. We went up there, we resized the system, did the engineering ourselves. We're actually quite proud of it. And what we figured out is from that 90, we could reduce the size by 2/3 to a 30 kilowatt hour generator, put in a large battery bank and then a bunch of solar, and that can actually maintain the community. Because you would have a huge peak load demand, everybody would get home at the same time, and they would require a lot of power. But it was only for 2 hours a day, but they were running this 90 kilowatt hour generator all day. So by sizing it down, they saved a ton of fuel. And then I realized, like, I was driving back home in Old Blue, and I started thinking, Old Blue's at 1969 Kenworth we got, driving her back from the Yukon, and I was thinking, like, a truck is about the same thing, what we just did there. So a truck takes a lot of power to get her going. It has a huge peak load demand in its power requirements. Like, to break that initial inertia and get a truck moving off the line, you're going to put a lot of power out to the wheels. Once you're actually rolling, it doesn't keep a lot to maintain that momentum. It's just getting it started. So what happens if we applied the same thing? That community, they saved $80,000 the first year. I think we billed them about $130,000 for the system, and they saved $80,000 in fuel the first year. So about a year and a half payback in fuel savings.
That's pretty good.
Plus that generator's going to last for 10 years. Like they got a whole new system, whole brand new generator compared to the old 1980s Deuce they had. Brand new generator, batteries, solar, and it paid itself off in a year and a half with that kind of system. So that's when we realized, like, why don't we just do this with a truck? Huge peak load demand, same as the community, for just a small period of time. We'll put in a smaller generator, and we'll use those batteries to shove it off the line.
There you go.
Wow. So that's the project. That's what Edison Motors is.
That is what Edison Motors is.
So what kind of response have you had? I know I saw this probably almost a year ago. I think I saw it on TikTok, is where I saw you, and with Old Blue and talking about it, and it's just come full circle. Have you had a lot of response from just the public of taking your product off?
We've had a huge response. It started in December is when we announced it to the public. It was the beginning of December is when we announced Edison Motors. We've been working on it for like a year and a half, trying to figure everything out. Announced it in December. We had overwhelming support. We did some crowdfunding. We raised, in the first 5 days, we raised $240,000. Wow. And I made a little post saying like, hey, thank you guys. The project is done. Like, I super appreciate you guys crowdfunding this. We'll be closing it here soon. And didn't think anything of. Like, I didn't close it right away, but we went out to dinner with my business partner to celebrate, and got back home and looked at it after just going out for dinner. Got back home. 3 hours later, we raised another $200,000 off the crowdfunding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in 2-3 hours. Like, that's when we realized, like, oh crap, this is kind of going viral.
So this is I wanted to get in on this. I remember sending it to Tanner and David and saying we should do this, and then literally like a day or two later, it was locked out. Like you're like, we got enough, or that's the first round. There'll be more rounds. So are these people that got in? Did they have? Are they promised money back, or was that just purely just like gifts to you?
Well, no, it's equity in the company through the crowdfunding. So you know, we have 5 million shares in the company, and they bought their percentage of the shares and ownership of the company. So when you invest in a private company like this through crowdfunding, it's really hard unless the private company wants to pay dividends, which is one option. But most of the time, it's you don't do dividends until you're established. And once you're established, you're kind of like a public company. So the idea would be then in a couple of years to make it a public company. And then the people that bought those shares can then sell them through the IPO.
Okay.
Right.
Let's go back to the technology. You have a generator there, and then batteries for the initial power, and then electric motors. So locomotives have been diesel locomotives for a long time, and they're a diesel power plant that power separate drive motors on wheels for the railroad. I assume you're similar to that, correct?
Yeah, we're basically the exact same. They use ultra capacitors, which are really huge and heavy, and then they run just direct drive DC motors.
I got you.
They just run it direct. So we need to transfer, because lithium, we got to transfer it from AC to DC back to AC for the motors. But we also are going to take advantage of regenerative braking and then use the lithium. So the idea is basically 90% there. We just change up the batteries slightly and do a couple little fancy things with the way the current flow is coming out of it.
So have you kind of priced for? We're going to have two things. One is you're going to have naysayers that say there's not enough power. This isn't this isn't my 1962 Kenworth. It isn't my Pete. It isn't my whatever. So power wise, I'm sure you're there, correct?
Okay, so we just finished up the full engineering. Actually, we just got the full schematic back yesterday off our engineering team that we were talking to, and we ended up working with some really, really good established companies, but figuring out the torque on those motors. So an X15 Cummins running about 600 horsepower. By the time you go through your gear reduction, puts out about 60,000 foot-pounds of torque to the wheels. With our options, we can either put out between 90 to 110,000 foot-pounds of torque.
Wow.
Whoa.
And it gets more exciting because in the regenerative braking, an AC motor can suck up just as much power as it can put out. That's the way you can just turn that drive motor into a generator. When you flip the switch, it puts a load onto the motor, and there's very little difference between a motor and a generator. It's just a piece of metal spinning in some copper. Some magnet spinning in copper. That's all it is either way. So you turn it into a generator, and it can suck up 110,000 foot-pounds of torque on the Jakes, or the E-Jakes as we're calling them.
Right. I was going to ask you if you were going to relate that to the Jake brakes. So that's going to stop you.
The X15 puts out, you get about 60% of your engine holdback in a diesel. So you're holding back about 40,000 foot-pounds of torque holdback. We can do the whole 90,000 foot-pounds of torque holdback. Like, you should be able to just bring that thing right to a halt with their regenerative braking.
Wow. And the reason we're saying should is this is all still in concept, correct?
Oh, no, all this stuff has been made at this point. Meridor makes the rear ends, has already made it and tested them all out. So they've all the rear ends are all a proven technology now. Nice. Generators, and like working with Cat for those get some generators. Generators are proven technology. Everything here is kind of a proven technology. We're just combining it in a unique way.
Just putting it into a package.
Can you talk a little bit about why that diesel generator going to electric is so much more efficient? You guys had a TikTok. It was talking about joules and how many joules are in a gallon of gas and all that. Like, can you just go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll try not to get too technical. But the basic way is that in a diesel motor, you put out a ton of energy into where it is it's going through the gears to deliver that power is where you really lose all you're not operating in your peak efficient RPM band of the engine. Everyone knows a diesel engine loves to rev right up 1700, 1800. She likes to sit there. That's what a diesel loves to do. But when you're going through those gears, you're dropping down to 1200, your turbo spools down, you throttle up, you got to wait for that turbo lag to build back up. And then you just get going and you grab another gear and then you throttle her back in. And then once you're up to your cruising speed, you still have that 15-liter engine and you're just not running it at full load, where diesels love having like that 75 to 100% load on that engine. Like diesels love to just work hard, get lugged down, and push at their peak RPM. You get an old diesel running like that, she'll last 3 times longer than it will in a variable application. Mm-hmm. So that's where that real efficiency comes in, is that by packing that diesel smaller, you can run it more efficiently, and then you use those batteries to smooth you out, because electric vehicles don't have transmission. They have a one big, nice, smooth torque curve the whole way across.
So that's probably demonstrated in when you see these motors at irrigation wells or pivots. The motors will run for so many more hours than they will in the chassis of a truck, because they're running at that peak performance and a consistent load the whole time it's pumping.
Yeah, exactly. There's generators up in northern Canada. Remember when the U.S. military, Canadian military, they made that distant early warning line when they were worried about the Russians sending nukes? It was back in like the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. There's still 3306B cats up there running over 100,000 hours on those motors. Whoa. Like a truck engine, you get 25,000, you're looking at a rebuild. You got those old generators, those old 3406s, and they're hitting, 6-digit hour meters. Like, that's insane. They just don't die when they're running them like that.
Wow. I have a business question for you. So when we're talking Edison Motors, I see you got the old truck there, the 1962 Kenworth. Is your goal with the company to have all the truckers across the world retrofit their vehicles, and you're going to sell a retro kit to have it redone? Or are you going to partner with some big company, or sell your idea down the road to bigger companies that they then build brand new trucks?
No, we don't want to sell the idea, because I think another company will just dick it up. Like, we're really, really big on right to repair. I love the fact that we can keep these old trucks on the road. Like we bought our 1969 Kenworth 6 years ago, maintained it. I put less than $4,000 in parts on that, and I've been low bedding and hauling logs with it for 6 years. The guy I bought it off of, Bob Murphy, bought it brand new back in 1969 when he was in his early 20s. He drove that one truck until he retired at 68 years old when we got it.
Wow.
Like, that's how it should be. You buy it, you talk to even farmers. Talk to any old farmer that has an old tractor, he'll tell you that old John Deere from 1962 just doesn't die. That tractor just doesn't die, because they made it without planned obsolescence. They made it with the ability to repair it. You talk to any old timer in their 70s, they'll be like, "Oh, well, how do you get the tractor?" Well, we had tractor parts stores, and you would just go in and grab the alternator off that tractor, put it on that one. You could repair them and fix them yourself, and that's why we don't really want to sell the company out, because we are planning to build as much right to repair into this truck as we possibly can.
And what's the average truck cost, guys? I mean, over the road trucker, you're talking what, $150,000 or more than that now?
Yeah.
Oh, more than that. They're like $220 US now.
Yeah.
Jeez.
The ones we're looking at, because we're not looking at building highway trucks. We're not. Highway trucks don't make sense for us. To be totally honest with you, I'm not going to come up here and say that our system is the best for everything. Diesel engines on a truck that's running in the U.S. across the prairies, hauling, 80,000 pounds of a dry van, is going to get up to 60 mile an hour, and he's going to stay there for 3-4 hours. Well, that's not really taking advantage of that generator, that peak efficiency load. Like, they can already size those engines to about where they're pulling. Where it makes sense is the heavy haul application, the logging, the city driver application, that heavy vocational stuff that needs a lot of auxiliary power, is where it makes the most sense to do electric. So we're just kind of going to that.
Day cab trucks.
So like for us, it'd be grain hauling during harvest would be one of those deals to where you might be only a mile or two away from the bin site, get out of the field, maybe need a little extra power getting out of the field entrance, onto the road. You might barely get to 60.
I can even see it, so one of our fields is 15 miles away. I got to stop like 6 times or 7 times. The stopping and going is what it takes forever.
Right.
I'm glad that you guys understand the business side of it as well, in that you understand what it works for and what it doesn't
I don't know
work
if
for.
he answered. Are you going to sell retrofit kits then?
Yes. Well, we're going to go both ways. We'll start with the retrofit kits because that's the easiest way to get scaled up. Everybody, always say, you're starting a car company, getting into production's hard. But if we got the kit, we've already figured out the kit, we've tested it, we'll sell the kits.
Yep.
And we'll make them simple so that any diesel mechanic shop in North America, we can show them how to install them. We can sell them a kit. They can roll a truck into the shop. It's super easy. All you got to do, and like, you drop your drive axle, drop that axle, put in the electric axles, bolt them up the same way you would. Drop the transmission and the drivetrain out of the truck. You bolt on the generator housing onto the back. You then drop one fuel tank off the one side. You bolt on the battery bank onto that side. And then you just plug and play the connections. And then we got a nice dash slot that fits in. You just get a nice, 379 or W900 dash panel for the main controls and plug that into there. And you're good.
Huh. Can you tell us any kind of anticipated date when people could go to your website and buy this?
We're probably about a year off of that still.
Okay.
So we still have a year-long lead time on those e-axles.
Okay.
Right now, it's just the supply chain getting anything is super hard.
It's because they need more of these trucks on the road.
14 months, 6 months to go. And then once I get them and get it in there, I want to test it for at least 6 months myself, drive it, haul it, see what works, see if we need to go back to the drawing board. So she's going to be a little bit of time here, but.
Do you have an estimated or target price range that a retrofit would cost?
Less than the cost, definitely less than the cost of a new truck.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Well, good. Good.
Yeah, it's definitely less than the cost of a new truck. It depends on the e-axles we go with. There's 2 different companies and they have 2 very different prices. So we're just going to see what the difference is. The ones that are cheaper, ones for the e-axles, they want like 50, 60 grand an axle. And I think that's just nuts. Like that's 120 for the axles. The other ones are like 25 grand an axle. I'm like, that sounds more realistic. 50,000 normal set of rear ends. You're looking at 30 grand for your full rear ends. 50 isn't that much more of a step up.
Yeah.
75 is we're kind of pushing that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the break even. So let's say it costs $150,000 for your kit. Do you guys have like an estimated how long it takes that person to make it back? So this is more that business side again. If I'm your salesman and I'm pitching it to my farmers that are listening and saying, hey, you guys need to buy this product. I'm telling you, Edison Motors is the ticket. You spend 150 grand on your grain truck. You're probably going to make that back in 2 years, 4 years.
It's gotta be in miles.
It's going to be in miles. Do you have an estimate?
Well, in terms of in years, we're probably looking at about a year and a half payback right now. With current fuel prices, like a year to year and a half payback.
Fantastic.
Wow. For somebody that's trucking all the time, that's your every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
If your job is full-time trucking. And this is where this is the hard part because there's a lot of caveats on what you're doing with the truck. Yeah, if you're using the truck 2 hours a day, maybe not. If it's just a grain haul that lasts very seasonally for a few months of the year, probably not going to see those paybacks. Where you get the best payback is that's why we're targeting logging in BC right now, because we're on the West Coast, we're always in the mountains. And all the logs are up at the top of the mountain. So you go up the mountain empty, you put those logs on, you're coming down loaded with the regen. We could see fuel savings up to like that 80, 90% fuel savings right there. Mm-hmm. Trucks are putting in right now, logging trucks in BC, putting in about $20,000 a month.
Wow.
That's $240,000 a year. If we can have an 80% fuel savings on that truck is paid off. This whole system's, we're paid off around like 8-10 months.
Right. That's
less than.
That's pretty good return on investment. And I can see where that fits into the niche. And then, most of the listeners that we have are here in the Midwest. So I know that they're thinking about, okay, maybe they are hauling livestock. Might not be the most applicable to them because they're probably more road trips, but then there's a lot of that stay and do local hauling. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys here also will take those grain trucks and they will haul local as well, which would still work, going from elevator to elevator. Probably not quite as much savings, but quite interesting because when you look at this technology, Chace, What do you see once you have this all put together, tested out, the concept works, and it is now a viable product, a viable concept? How do you see this changing the industry as a whole from the manufacturer side? Are companies going to start, mimicking it, or will it always just be what you can convert a current truck to?
That's part of the strategy with planned our no planned obsolescence, right to repair. John Deere, Freightliner, come back, have parts, buy a new one every 5-6 years. They don't want to make a truck like these old girls back in the 60s that are still running. And then we realized that if we're building this kit and everything works really well, these big companies could come in and stomp us. Like, they could come in and offer one of their big kits. Like, they could probably get the sales volume to purchase that we can't. Where we can compete is if we make it super reliable and super easy to fix the way a truck should be. How are they going to compete against that?
Right.
Make it simple, make it able to repair, and make our system so that, hey, if these big companies want to sell a system that's just like ours, they're going to have to make it simple just like ours. And if it's simple, it's going to be repaired. Like, dear God, we're just a bunch of mechanics and loggers who have built this thing in a tiny shop up in BC. If we can build it in a shop, and our shop is only too old to really work on like these old trucks. Like, we don't do the big generators. We don't do the fancy switch gear or anything. We just install metal panels, solar panels onto things and haul it out and connect them up. If we can just maintain trucks and we can build this truck, that means that those guys working in their shops can all, with a little bit of mechanical knowledge, can also build and maintain these trucks. And I don't think these big companies want to do that. So that's kind of where we're at for that.
Makes a lot of sense. I had a question on your actual size of generator. So how big is the diesel motor or generator in your truck compared to, you talked about like a X15, like a big old Cummins. How big are they now?
C9. So we're still going with a 9. I want to try that out. It seems to be a 9. I should be able to run around that 75% load. It gave me a little bit extra for testing if I need a little bit more, or maybe I learn I can downsize a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, I went with a C9 cat.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm putting.
I was just curious because we got to deal with DEF and regulations and emissions and all that stuff down here. I don't know how much you guys have to deal with that, but it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I don't even know how to answer this question for you because we don't know how to answer this question. So the way it is our vehicles deemed in Canada, at least, is fully electric because it can run and operate 100% off of the electric drivetrain. Electric compressors, electric power steering. You only need to fire up the diesel if you need it. It's an auxiliary range extending unit. Now here, on an auxiliary unit, you're just packing an extra generator that could happen to turn on and feed electrical power. It's not the drive unit of the truck. Auxiliary generators don't have to meet the same tier of emissions at all that the trucks do. But it's also part of the truck. So we have no idea whether to, like, if we're building a brand new truck for somebody, does it need to meet brand new truck emissions, or can we get away with one of those older engines without the DEF and EGR because it's just an auxiliary standby generator? Yeah. So that's a weird conundrum we're in. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to just do the retrofits and we'll just match the emissions to whatever truck we're putting in.
Okay.
So if you got a 1977 nice W900 Kenworth, she'll have the emissions of a 1970s W9 coming out of that line.
So we should be going to the junkyards and getting some.
I was just going to say, auction trucks are going to be going ballistic, and people are going to buy all the old ones, and we need to start a company where we just take their stuff, put it in our old trucks, and then resell them.
Yeah, Farm4Profit's going to be the U.S. arm of Edison Motors, and we'll just have a large warehouse and shop. Everybody come in here, work on your own truck. Yeah. We'll save everything all together.
We have all the tooling, everything you need. Yeah.
You know what? I could see that. That's probably how to do it. You gave me an idea on how to do the franchise model right there. Okay, let some people that are qualified Edison Motor Kit installers, they can go out, they can search the auctions for some trucks with some nice bodies, nice internals, and they can just take our kit, do it, and then they can just resell the truck.
Resell the truck.
You're the Edison Motors dealership franchise.
There you go.
Also, you've got to build the truck.
Yeah, piece of cake. Sounds easy.
Well, most of the time the auction trucks just have 1 million miles on them, or 2 million miles for that matter. If they're, but if you get into some of these corporate trucks that are day cabs, like you're talking, that are more the city driving trucks, that's what a lot of the farmers want. Short wheelbase. It'll have that 170-inch wheelbase instead of a 205. And
You're going to put fresh rear ends in
I'd
it?
say anything under 230
Yeah.
is good.
a little better turning radius and a day cab and spruce it up a little bit.
So with your setup, Chase, is there a minimum wheelbase length that you can get it to fit, get everything to fit together under, or not?
Yeah, I can fit everything within like a 240. I wouldn't want to go with like lower than 240 for
Gotcha.
a tandem.
That's doable.
We just need a little bit of room to mount the batteries. I guess I'm running right now I put all this whole setup in full blue, and I'm running a 250-inch wheelbase, and I probably inches. What's that? My foot says. I got about 3 feet to spare on a 250.
Oh, okay. Well, you could do it.
Yeah, you could do
that'd
it then.
That'd be all right.
Yeah.
Sorry for making you try to think into
Math, it's hard.
out of the metric system.
Yeah, trying to do American math.
You're a lot better at coming our way than we are going your way. That's for sure.
That's all for Brennan. He's a mechanical engineer. He can handle that. So
All I know is the foot is about what a foot is because it's called a foot.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right.
What I'm going
Makes
with.
sense, right?
That's right. So
Yeah.
you, like I said, we started off the conversation learning about what you guys are doing with your solar business, but then before we hit record, you had also talked and I admired our studio because you also have a podcast. Tell us a little bit about the podcast that you have going on.
Yeah, we got a blue collar interview podcast. We just sit down with people who are working, farmers, or truck drivers, equipment operators, and we just bullshit away for a half hour, an hour, however long we feel like talking.
Cool. Do you do that by yourself?
Oh, no, we got a buddy, Jordan Willie. He's one of the other directors at Edison. And I wish we could put up more episodes, but I'm so busy building this truck right now. We're just finishing up and getting this proof of concept rolling. That's taking all my time, so I haven't really been able to record any for the last few months.
Hey, we know how it goes. It's got to work out
It's tough.
just perfectly. We should just send you this audio file, and you could throw it out
There you go.
as one of your long lost episodes.
There we go.
Well, I'm really glad that you joined us. So here in America, I don't know how it is up there, but we are getting this alternative energy, electric vehicles shoved down our throats. It seems like they're really pushing fossil fuels as high as it can go and try to kill it. And it puts a bad taste in people's mouth, I think. But that's not the technology's fault, right? Electric makes sense because you have power right away, full power right away, all the time. Like you said, peak curves and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad to finally put a little bit of knowledge behind it because, plugging these Teslas in to a grid that is already overworked and they're asking us to shut our air conditioners off when it's hot because it can't handle it doesn't make much sense. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it makes sense. If we want to go electric, why don't we just take baby steps there? As the batteries get better, because the batteries and the grid infrastructure isn't there. As the batteries and grid infrastructure gets better, we can just start sizing the diesel generator smaller and smaller. Maybe in 10 years, 20 years, you got a 4-liter just backup generator. Maybe you got one that's just basically an APU is just like a backup. We're trying to hop right to the end goal. And the other thing is they're making every electric truck so goddamn ugly. Can I just say that? Nobody looks at a Tesla that's a truck driver and be like, oh, that's a sexy rig right there. Can't wait to hop in that beauty. Hey, give her a spin. All my buddies are going to think I'm so cool driving this thing. No. So every truck driver that's getting electric rammed down the throat looks at the whole way the industry is designing everything and be like, that's stupid. At least we're putting them in cool trucks.
That's true.
So is there, you just made me think, we've been talking diesel the whole time, but when I think of cars, I think of gas. There's gas generators out there. Could you use a gas generator or a liquid propane generator? Does it have to be diesel?
You could, but gas just doesn't give you that nice, smooth, long runtime. Great at high revving engines, like race cars, gas, perfect. Diesel for long. It's a generator. And that's where people have been asking me, what about hydrogen? What about natural gas? I'm like, well, yeah, it's just a generator. I could drop whatever power plant you want in the truck.
Right.
What do I got to do? 6 engine mounts, 6 bolts for an engine mount, drop whatever engine you want in there. You You want natural gas? We'll put natural gas. You want hydrogen? We'll drop in a hydrogen engine. You want a diesel engine because it's not connected to a drivetrain, and I don't need a fancy ECM system because all it's going to do is rev right up to 1,800 RPM and stay there. I don't need to do anything to figure that out. Whatever I'm putting in there is going to figure it out.
Well, that's pretty awesome. Boy, I sure like your product. And Chase, one thing I'll tell you, as a fellow entrepreneur and like to make stuff, I appreciate the fact that you have answers to the questions, because I go to lots of pitch where people have new products, and when they do, we ask, hey, what could it potentially cost? What could it potentially, and they have no idea. Yeah, at least I appreciate the fact that you gave us an answer, and it means you're totally vested into your company and know it, which I think is going to take you a long, long way. We better wrap up here. Is there anything else that we need to let our listeners know about your product?
I mean, if anyone's got any questions, they can always send me an email or reach out on TikTok. And like TikTok, and I try and answer as many questions as I can. I try to show everybody how it works, because like you just said, I don't believe in these companies that have these, hey, look at our cool new tech. You're like, cool, can you show us how it works? It's all secret information. Like Nikola, 2 years later, that their truck didn't even move under its own power. They aired up the brakes, rolled it down a hill. $30 billion company, we're lying the whole time. So check it out on our TikTok, because I am showing everything we're doing and how everything works.
Right.
So I had two, and now I have three questions. Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
They'll be real quick, and it's just coming from the farmer side of me. Batteries are heavy. Are your trucks going to be much more heavy than it was originally?
No, because we're not fully electric. So the Tesla has like 20,000 pounds of batteries.
Okay.
But we only add on like 140 kilowatt hours worth of batteries. So we add on about 1,500 pounds worth of batteries, 600 kgs, 700 kgs. But that engine, when you go from an X15 down to a C9, you drop from a 3,800 pound engine, trying to do the conversions here, down to about a 2,000 pound engine.
Okay.
You're knocking off about 1,600 pounds. You knock off about 1,000 kgs worth. No, a little under 1,000. 800 kgs worth.
Okay, great. And then what about life expectancy of these batteries?
We don't know yet. Honestly, we don't know. This is one of the things we're going to have to figure out. So in a car, these lithium batteries last about 7-8 years. That's where about their warranty, but that's because the car cycles and drains the whole batteries every time, then tops it up. We're not really doing that because we have the diesel generator. It's a cycle life that's super hard on the battery. So we're not really draining it and charging it because you're charging it on the fly. So I'm not entirely sure. It's supposed to last longer, but I don't want to come out here and say that they're going to last longer because there's only a few applications where people have actually tried this, and they're not really releasing their information on how it's working to me. So
that'll be interesting.
Might last longer, might not making any promises.
And the last one before I let Tanner wrap it up. So are you going to have another crowdfunding source, or will it be an IPO the next
Oh, we'll do one more crowdfunding. Enough people have asked me to do one more crowdfunding that I made a sign up list, and now I got to figure out how to do it, because we only wanted to do the same number of shares we did the first time. The first time we had it was 1,300 people, and that was the whole 10%. We want to do 10%, but we've already got we're getting near 11,000 people on our investor sign up list. So I'm like, how do I do that? How do I make that fair to the people that signed up? And
charge more for the shares,
I guess, and see if some people are
How do you guys
less
feel about
interested.
investing in a farm podcast?
That's it. That's what you do. Is everybody extra? You just send them to invest in our podcast.
You get nothing back but good quality content.
There we go.
That is great. Chase, the last question that we ask everybody, and I'll give you a couple moments to think about it here as I wrap up, is what is the best advice that you have ever been given? But we today, while he's thinking about that, had a conversation with Chace Barber, CEO of Edison Motors. We dove a little bit into what he does on a daily basis, but mainly the project of no more ugly electric trucks. We are exploring the concept, pretty much proof of concept now, of diesel electric generated power in semi-tractors to haul heavy loads.
Or semi.
Or semi tractors. Yeah, that's we should have poked more fun at Canadian jokes today. But Chace up there's got a team working together on this. If you want to learn more about it, you go to edisonmotors.ca to look that up. And if you've got any topics like this that you want to suggest to Farm for Profit, it is farm4profitllc@gmail.com. So, Chace, what is some of the best advice that you've ever been given?
Find a good partner for work. If you're going to go out and do business on your own, you find a good partner in your life, like a wife, and your wife is your partner for your household stuff. Find a good partner for the business stuff.
Yeah.
That partner in your business is going to be a lot like your wife or girlfriend. They're going to keep you motivated for the house stuff. A partner is going to keep you motivated in the business. Somebody with the same goals, the same desires, same ambitions. Partner up with them for good or worse. You're going to have bad times when you're starting up a business. Your partner's going to keep you motivated and through. When he's having bad times, it keeps you motivated. I've got a real good partner with Eric Little, and honestly, I couldn't do it without him. So,
that's a great answer. Listeners, that was a really good answer.
Yeah.
So what do you say, Corey? Has that been a good episode?
Yeah. I was going to you don't want to challenge?
Oh, challenge away.
I was just going to challenge to, we get so one-sided on things, and I think I've had a challenge like this, but this is the perfect example. Like, it's so easy to go, screw that electric stuff. They're shoving it down our throats. It's not going to work. We need fossil fuels. But have an open mind to at least know the other side, because look at what we found. If we didn't know that, I would have never found these guys on TikTok, or I would have scrolled right past and never thought into it. Yeah. And how cool is the technology? So do that, and also go check them out on TikTok. They got some really interesting stuff.
Absolutely. Well, Chace, we appreciate you hanging out with us, and listeners, until next time, have a good one.
Awesome. Thanks, eh?
Remember, if you aren't farming for profit, you won't be farming for long.